Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of SpeakEasy with Eric and Cory. We weren't planning on doing an episode. We were about a week out from our next recording, but figured with what's going on in Southern California, let's do one. And if you don't live here, we are experiencing a lot of fires. There's a lot of power outages. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the implications to solar, battery backup, generators, and let's call out some of the things that maybe people don't understand so well. So let's just start with what's going on here. So, Cory, explain to people exactly what's happening, and is this normal? Should we expect there's going to be more of this?
Yeah, so anybody that doesn't live in California, it's we have really fair weather all year, which is awesome. But it's fair enough that you can grow brush pretty much anywhere, and then when it gets hot or windy, it lights on fire.
Yeah. If you haven't been to California before and you think it's all green and beautiful, no. A lot of it's brown.
You're thinking
it burns really easy.
You're thinking of way up north.
Yeah.
Down here in the bottom, we're a desert and we have flammable brush.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of wind right now, Santa Ana winds. So if you live in California, you know the Santa Ana winds, and we have a pretty severe event of wind right now, and static electricity or falling things, power lines, whatever, can ignite brush. And that's what's occurring all across California, all the way up to LA, all the way down to San Diego. Northern California, as far as I know, is not currently on fire. But the utilities in these cases, when things are on fire, obviously they're turning off power. When they suspect that the wind is severe enough that there could be a problem, they'll shut off power preemptively to try and keep fires from happening. And people get inconvenienced, people are upset, but the bottom line is we're without power.
And this is relatively new. So I've lived here 10 years. I think I've lost power at my house, I don't know, a half dozen times for a total of an hour. Like, it's really not a concern, but maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah, we've had a few drought years. So like as we get drier and drier and drier, the utilities are being sued more and more for all these fires. They're being more cautious.
Right.
So this is the strategy now, public safety shutoffs. So they shut the power off because if there's a potential, they would rather turn the power off because it costs them less than being sued for all the people that lose homes based on their being liable for starting a fire.
Right. What I was going to say was, like, I don't know, it was 5 years ago. I've lost track of time. There was a utility sparked fire near my in-laws' property, which is very close to this office where we're taping. And that was after the fact that they determined it was because of a transformer blow or whatever it was. But that fire burned right behind our houses. So that was a pretty scary scenario. And that was absolutely like a utility started fire and then blown by the wind. So
is that the time that we were going to evacuate your house?
Yeah, that was before I owned New Day Solar, but New Day Solar came and was evacuating me. Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Love
Good
you
times.
guys. Love us.
Love us. Yep.
So anyways, the point being though is, right, this is, to your point, the utility companies are protecting themselves. This isn't just like the power's down because it's actually down, like someone knocked over a telephone pole or something very traditional. This is they're covering their own ass because they're going to get sued for starting these fires that burn down houses. So they're like, much easier. Let's just flip the power off. And when the winds are down and we don't have to worry about the risk of fire spreading quickly, that's when they'll come back on. And that's what people are experiencing right now.
Yep. So power's been off for, I think, 24 hours, and it's coming back on in some places, but still in areas like La Cresta, Duluth, Fallbrook, it's still off. And I think it will remain off because we have winds coming for the next week.
Right. So when this happens, right, it's kind of like when a torrential downpour happens and everyone's roofs are leaking and roofers get a bunch of calls. Right now, we're getting a ton of calls because people are asking about, how do I have more resiliency? How do I have battery backup or generators or ways to protect myself when the utility is going to do this forced shut off? So what I'm thinking we do here is let's go through some of like the misunderstandings people have, some of the misnomers, because we've heard a lot of calls come through from customers, and we're not saying that they're bad questions or thoughts, but the point is we like to clarify and let people know what's actually real. And then maybe what are options for people to protect themselves in the future, because this is going to keep happening. So I think that's kind of the format of what we tackled today.
Cool. So a few calls that I've received is some people think, and it's okay to think this, but some people think that just simply having a solar system, solar panels on your roof, means that you have power when the utility is out.
Which isn't totally like a ridiculous thought, right? Because they know that sun's up and their panels should be producing power. So their question is, where's that power going if not to my house? And the answer is...
You mean to put the nerd hat on? I mean,
just
I don't want to
keep it simple.
I don't want to dive too far into this, but ultimately, solar systems produce X amount of power when the sun is up. And if there's nowhere for that power to go because the utility is off, then it can't, right? So the solar systems that we install are grid connected, and they can only operate when the grid is present for safety reasons. To protect utility workers and people down the line, it can't operate.
It's literally looking for like a sine wave, right? Coming from the grid. If it's not present, it shuts down the inverter, which makes the power on your roof useless. It's not going anywhere.
You need to island yourself. So you need to isolate yourself from the utility before you can have a system that operates and produces power and feeds power to your home.
That's probably a great place to start, because I do think a lot of people, I've fielded a couple of these inquiries where people just think if I have solar, I might not have backup when the sun's down, but when the sun's up, I should still be receiving what's being produced. That is definitely a misconception. It's a safety thing, and people need to know about that. So no, just having solar does not protect you if the grid's down. If the grid's down, you're down.
Right. So more calls, right? Because as net metering in California has progressed, there have been the rollout of batteries, right? So you would think, hey, my house has batteries,
right,
so I have backup now. No, not necessarily. You still have to isolate yourself from the utility in order to utilize that when the utility doesn't have power. So without that isolation device, you don't necessarily have backup. You can have batteries to store power and then provide the home with energy when the cost of energy is high, when the utility is up. But if you're not isolating yourself, you might have solar and batteries that are grid dependent that cannot operate when the grid is down.
So give that a little more color. In California, the last 2-ish years, 18 months to 24 months, 90+% of people have been getting batteries now because it helps with the return on investment. Of that percentage of people going, how many are estimate how many are not backed up?
This is spitballing. I would say 90%.
Right.
90% of those installs got batteries, but they don't have an isolation device to actually utilize them when the grid is down.
And it's not necessarily cheap, right? Let's not just make this sound like they made a mistake. They didn't ask the right question. There's a price difference and a material, what's being installed at your house difference for going and having backup. Right. So what was installed was functional for eliminating electric bill. It's a good ROI creating device, but it's not what you need to have backup in this scenario where these outages are happening.
The last thing I'll say too is there's another layer. There's people that got a system that can provide backup power, but in this new net metering world, they utilize that battery to offset expensive power. So if they're utilizing that battery, drawing it down at nighttime, and then the power goes out, they've already drawn it down. It doesn't have any reserve for backup. So they go to use it and you got 30% left or 15% left, and you run your heater for a couple hours and no power.
So let's talk about what that actually looks like, right? So you're talking about a dual function battery that helps with payback periods, right? You're saving money, but also has the ability to back up your house. So during the day, sun's up, call that 8 to 5. It's basically the battery is charging, not discharging. But as soon as we hit that 5 p.m., the sun goes down, heavy loads are being used, air conditioning units, whatever else. Now the battery is discharging.
Yeah, power is expensive between 4 and 9, essentially. So the battery is discharging there.
Right. So theoretically, the backup is available, but as every hour goes by, you're using it so you don't buy from the grid and you're saving money.
Yep.
So there are settings, right, within each battery technology within an app, but this is something that homeowners need to be aware of, right? If you don't have a certain backup minimum, like the battery is going to stop and preserve 30% of its capacity for backup, or maybe there's a weather related protection where you can say, nope, during this week, high winds are expected, save 100% of my battery for backup. Don't worry about saving me money for this week.
Right.
Right. That's something that people, if they're not aware of, they might find themselves without power and also without battery backup because their house drained it to save money.
Yep.
Which you don't care about when you have no power. You want backup power. You don't
Right.
care about saving $8.46 or whatever it is.
Unfortunately, you can't really have it both ways unless you plan to have a backup system in addition to a rate arbitrage system. You really have to say, I want both things. Most people are like, I'm willing to spend less money and get the rate arbitrage only system. And yeah, I'll have a little bit of backup, but not that much. And they're willing to bet on that until there is an event like we're having right now. And then they're going, shoot, I should have opted for the bigger batter system.
Right. And I don't want to cross too much into a topic that's a rabbit hole, but we rabbit hole, the phrase. Yeah, that's our thing. I know you're sensitive to this, but right now, a lot of new sales where people are buying brand new solar systems, they don't have solar. The shiny object that people are chasing is this idea of solar plus batteries to help with payback period, plus whole home backup with a very small battery, right? And this is the situation where you say, cool, you got it. Right, that's why I didn't want to say it. But cool, you bought the thing that the salesperson told you have, but how much battery backup do you have? The answer is basically none. Yeah. So if you want to have both savings on electric bill and backup in these scenarios, you need more battery and probably more panels in most cases. So have it designed correctly. Otherwise, all you have is something that doesn't work when you actually need it, kind of like insurance. That's yeah. Sorry, that's probably insensitive for what's happening right now, but
yeah.
That's another problem in California, right? Because from all these houses and structures burning down, people are going to get dropped for insurance because, let's be honest, insurance companies only keep you as long as you're not causing them catastrophic, payouts.
I hope that there's no insurance companies coupled in that 15 viewers that we have, because they're going to be upset about this. But it's not good. Like you said, whole home backup is becoming more and more of a thing. But whole home backup is, can the system operate that way? Yes. Will it actually operate that way? No. And I think that a lot of solar salespeople out there are giving incorrect information in terms of how this stuff's actually going to work.
I think another misnomer worth talking about is even if people successfully get solar and backup, they have enough capacity to do the backup where it's meaningful. I think people forget, because of how infrequent we've lost power, that what loads are actually backed up. So when the power actually goes out, I think some people, and this is real, like we've had customers call us, they're surprised when certain lights are on or certain powers available versus not. So I think my point of saying this is it's really important to actually have a meaningful conversation about this in the front end. Make sure you understand what is truly backed up. You can't just say that outlet in the corner of that room I want on, right? There's a circuit with certain loads on it and you don't get to cherry pick. Like, you have to put what's on a breaker and that's what's being moved over. So to just assume that like the thing that you care about maybe when power goes out is on it isn't a good assumption. You have to actually pick and choose which circuits are the ones you want to be critical and backed up.
Yeah. So I have an ask, I guess, for our viewers. Educate yourselves. Know how your system works. Run yourself through scenarios. Turn your main breaker off and see how your system functions. Don't just listen to the installer and how it works. Test it for yourself. My parents, when I was a kid, we used to do I don't know if your parents did this, but like the fire drill exercise, right? Like where's our meeting place? If there's a fire and we can't, mommy, daddy can't get to you, we go to the street, right? Or whatever. We meet at the mailbox. You got to run through these scenarios with your family. And if there's an emergency situation in your house, and I consider a power outage, I guess minor, emergency in most cases. Some people have life-saving equipment, but most cases it's minor. You need to know how to operate your system. You're buying this thing that you need to work, and if you've never tested it, you don't know how to use it. You don't know what it actually does when there's an outage. That's the people that are calling us and going, I don't know. Do I need to do anything? What do I need to turn this off? Do I need to turn this on? And that's fine. You can use us for support, but at least for me, I want to be able to. I want to be able to live the way that I need to live, know how things work, troubleshoot if something's not working properly, and understand that, I need to change something.
Oh, it's a great point, especially in a time where, if we're being honest, most people don't know how to cut the plastic tag and pull a pin out of a fire extinguisher, right? If there's a fire. So to understand how to use a battery backup system, and then if it's, I don't know, if a breaker trips or something, how to reset that.
Right.
These are things that maybe the average person has no idea.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't blame consumers, but I implore you to try, to try to look at this stuff. The problem is that everybody's very trusting with the solar industry, and I don't know if they should be, because not every solar installer or salesperson is created equal. They need to trust themselves and know how the things work themselves. And then if they still can't find the answer, call the solar installer. That's how it needs to work in the landscape that we have today.
Right. All right. So I think kind of the final segment, let's talk about what people can do. So this happened. I'm guessing the majority of people did not have backup power available. Probably a very small percentage of people had battery backup or generators. So I want you to break down what their options are and pros and cons, and maybe give people a good understanding of what they should expect to have if they have generators or battery backup.
Yeah, so I've been getting a lot of calls from customers since this event has been taking place. And basically the quick fix is going to Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, buy a generator.
Right.
And they do that and then take it to their house and go, how do I plug this into my house? It's not that simple. So you can run extension cords to specific appliances. You can power up power strips and plug in things, charge your phones, run a refrigerator, etc. And that's a solution. But people are waiting until the last minute, right? I mean, Home Depot, Lowe's, Harbor Freight are all sold out of generators today. You cannot go in there and buy a generator. So I would ask, again, consumers to be prepared for this type of situation. I don't think that anything's going to change in California from this point moving forward. Next year, this time of year, when everything is very dry and the winds start kicking up, I expect power to be off. So don't rely on your last minute Home Depot purchase. Oops, they don't have anything in stock to get a generator. Get something to help yourself. So your options are, if you have solar, that's awesome. It won't help you without some place to put that energy, right? So talk about an energy storage system. If you have a NEM 2 or a NEM 1 system, you're like, I don't want to attach a battery or change my net metering. You can add a battery without changing your net metering. So if you want to look at that, call a legitimate solar contractor, not a salesperson that you saw online or whatever. Research somebody that knows what they're talking about and talk to them about battery backup, and talk to them about specifically what you want. I want to back up my whole house, or I only care about lights and my refrigerator and my garage door opener. There's a lot of different scenarios. Not everybody wants or needs whole home backup. So there are smaller solutions that can help. Batteries they range in size. Everything is modular, so you can have a small system or a big system or whatever. You can have a very intelligent system that you may not even know that the power is out because it just takes over and takes care of you. So that can't fit in everyone's budget. Generators are way more cost effective in most cases than batteries. But generators have their own drawbacks. So initial install cost is lower than batteries, but there's no federal tax credit currently for generators. Fuel costs, right? If it's natural gas or propane, you're going to be paying for that fuel. And that could be pretty costly, especially in an outage like this, if it's extended 36 hours, something like that, and you want to run your heater and you have a heat pump, something like that, where you're running that generator at a large load percentage, you're going to use a lot
Not
of
to
fuel.
mention the noise, right? Like when generators turn on, they're not exactly something you want to stay on.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to imagine like your next door neighbor mowing their lawn for 36 hours straight, you may not love that. So generators could potentially piss off neighbors. In some areas, they're pretty difficult to get through an AHJ or a jurisdiction to get permitted because of the noise and the pollution and things like that. So
What about California regulation, right? There's kind of a clock on this. So at some point, this isn't even really an option.
Yeah, knock on wood. I mean, I don't see a date currently for California to not allow whole home standby generators to be installed. But I know companies like Honda don't even sell their portable generators in California anymore because of the EPA regulations here. So there's probably a clock. I'm not aware of it, but if you want a generator and you feel like you want that cost-effective solution, generators are usually way more of a broad solution. Install a high output generator and you're not necessarily going to have to do whole home or partial home type of solution. It's just install a generator. It's going to run everything. It's going to do whole home. Whereas batteries are a little more modular. You can do a smaller one and step up if you need to.
And its fuel source is the sun. So it's technically, as long as the sun's up, it's a cost-effective fuel source.
Right. So it's quiet, doesn't make any noise. So there are pros and cons to both things that, again, I'll spin it back to the consumer. Please consider all the options. None of these things are let me just call a company, tell them to install it tomorrow and forget about it. No, it's an expensive thing to do. It's something that you should know exactly how it's going to work, and you should test yourself before there is a situation that you need it to work in, because it doesn't always work exactly how you expect.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like if you were building the ideal situation at your home, you might need both. It might be a situation where you need batteries and a generator.
So there's the majority of I would design systems differently than probably most people would want, right? Like I would build a way more resilient system than the typical consumer thinks is necessary. But in times like this, and their system isn't working, they probably want the system that I would design. But yeah, I personally would go with a smaller battery system coupled with a generator.
Right.
Because it's going to carry your load for as long as you need, as long as that battery can support. And if I've done my job correctly or the contractor has done their job correctly, that's the majority of the load, and the generator is there for backup. So in a situation like this where there are fires, like imagine that there is a fire close to your home and the sky is black with smoke. Your solar isn't producing anything. The batteries aren't recharging. That is not the situation that you want to be in if you spend a bunch of money on a solar and battery system, right? So you need that generator to kick on to help the batteries support your home, or vice versa. You have a natural disaster like this. There's probably a lot of people in La Cresta and Duluth running generators today, and running themselves out of propane because maybe they were already low and now they've been running their generators for 24 or 36 hours and their propane tanks are approaching empty, and they're calling all the propane companies and they're like, we're a few days out because we have 1 million calls right now. That's a bad situation too. If you only have a generator, you spend a bunch of money on the generator, you don't have the fuel source, right? So coupling the two together, in my opinion, is the ultimate resiliency, because you have the sun to fuel the batteries, you have propane or natural gas or multiple other fuel options to fuel a generator. So you have all these different fuel sources to support your home. So that's what I'm after. And when I talk to customers is the ultimate resiliency.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I don't think it's rambling. I think that's good information. I mean, this is
Nerd hat off now.
no, this is a highly confusing topic for a lot of people, right? No, this is one of those things that nobody cares until you have to care. And right now,
Nobody cares.
everybody's forced to care, right? We drive out of our street and there's car accidents. All the lights are out. Like our building lost power. Like an entire section of our town is out. Like it's kind of chaos.
Yeah.
We tried to find a place to go do some work today, right? And they were out of power. It's just, when it happens, it's not a sprinkle, it's a torrential downpour, and that's where we're at right now. So
It's
having
crazy. I mean,
a plan matters.
We thought that our building being next to an airport and next to a justice center, a courthouse, we'd be protected. We're on a grid that is supported.
Nope.
No.
Their generators are running full steam. I heard it yesterday. So that's probably should have been in the misnomer section. I hear a lot of people say that. I'm in an area where there's a hospital or an airport or whatever it may be. So I think I'm protected in my section of the grid. Don't bank on that.
Those places, hospitals, airports, justice centers, prisons, they have generators for this type of situation. So Edison's going to turn off anyone's power.
Not just Edison, right? Any utility company.
Any utility company, right. They're going to turn off anyone's power. And if you're not prepared, and those people, hospitals, airports, etc., know how to be prepared. So, yeah, nobody is immune to this, especially not in Southern California and not moving forward. You might say, last year, power went out 2 or 3 times and it was for 2 hours. Moving forward, I think Edison is going to be all utilities are going to be a lot more careful with these lawsuits that are happening, and they're going to be turning off power at the 5 mile an hour breeze. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. So we need to be prepared.
So final advice, you're one of these people, you lost power for 24 hours, it's back, and you're thinking, man, next time I'm going to be prepared. What do you recommend they do? What's the step right now?
I think that they need to call a contractor like New Day Solar to discuss their options, right? Not everybody's budget is the same. They need to figure out what makes sense for them. So there are certain rebates for batteries. There are tax credits for batteries. If they already have solar, if they don't have solar, there's tax credits.
Very
and rebates
situational.
for that.
There's a lot of factors to consider.
Right. Those things aside, you can do a generator without solar or batteries, or in conjunction with solar and batteries. And that has its own set of, circumstances. So it's really talking with a company or a contractor that can work with whatever a customer's needs are, because every situation is different. Every budget is different, but there is a solution for every customer. I mean, you can be anywhere from $2,500, $3,500 for a generator system, portable generator system that's going to support the critical loads, and a portable generator that's going to do that for an extended period of time, all the way up to, I want to last forever. I want to run my air conditioning. I want to run my well pump. I want to run my, airplane hangar, whatever. There are many different solutions from top to bottom to cover everyone's needs.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us for this emergency podcast, and we'll see you next time for another episode of SpeakEasy with Eric and Cory.